Right now, somewhere in your pocket, a small rectangle of glass is waiting. You will reach for it in the next 10 minutes. You probably know this about yourself, but the real answer for why you can't stop is far stranger than willpower or addiction or bad habits. It starts 200,000 years ago, not with a screen, with a sound in the grass. Your ancestors lived in small bands on the savannah. Survival meant noticing things, a rustle that might be wind or might be a leopard. The humans who checked, who looked up, who scanned the tree line one more time, lived longer. The ones who didn't simply didn't pass on their genes. Over hundreds of thousands of years, this built something permanent into the human brain, a system anthropologists call vigilance behavior, constant, low-level scanning for anything new in the environment, not because something is usually wrong, but because the cost of missing the one time something is wrong is enormous. Your brain never stopped doing this. It just ran out of leopards. So what fills the gap? Novelty. Any novelty. A flicker of motion, a new sound, a small light turning on. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between a predator's movement and a notification's buzz. To the oldest part of your brain, new equals important. New equals check it now. This is where the neuroscience gets interesting. In the 1950s, a researcher named James Olds ran a famous experiment on rats. He implanted electrodes into a region of their brains and let the rats press a lever to stimulate it themselves. The rats pressed the lever again and again. Some pressed it thousands of times an hour, ignoring food, ignoring water, ignoring everything, until they collapsed from exhaustion. Olds had found what we now call the brain's reward pathway, centered on a chemical called dopamine. Here's the part people get wrong. Dopamine isn't the chemical of pleasure, it's the chemical of anticipation. It fires not when you get the reward, but right before, in the uncertain moment of maybe. Decades later, a researcher named Wolfram Schultz studied this more precisely in monkeys. He found that dopamine neurons fire most intensely not when a reward is guaranteed, and not when it's impossible, but when it's unpredictable. A 50% chance of getting something produces a bigger dopamine spike than a guaranteed reward ever could. The brain isn't built to crave the prize. It's built to crave not knowing. Does that sound familiar? Every time you unlock your phone, you don't know what's there. Maybe a message, maybe nothing. Maybe a like, a comment, a notification that matters. Your phone is, biologically speaking, a lever, and you are, biologically speaking, still that rat. This isn't an accident. In the early 2000s, a small wave of engineers and designers, many trained in a field called persuasive technology at Stanford, under a researcher named B.J. Fogg, took these exact findings, the variable reward, the dopamine spike of uncertainty, and built them directly into apps. The pull to refresh motion. The way a notification dot is read, the color your brain is wired to associate with threat and urgency. The infinite scroll, which removes the natural stopping point your ancestors always had, the bottom of the page, the end of the path, the edge of the visible savanna. You were never just checking your phone. You were being checked on by a system engineered around behavior humans evolved tens of thousands of years before screens existed. But there's a second layer to this, and it's older and arguably more powerful than novelty alone. Your ancestors did not survive as individuals. They survived as groups. A human alone on the savannah, cut off from the band, was almost certainly a human who would die, picked off by predators, unable to share food during a bad season, undefended against rival groups. So evolution built a second alarm system into your brain, one even more sensitive than the novelty detector. A social monitoring system. A constant, mostly unconscious tracking of your standing within the group. Are you still accepted, still safe, still part of the tribe? A psychologist named Naomi Eisenberger studied this directly. In a series of experiments, she had people play a simple ball-tossing game while inside a brain scanner. Except the game was rigged so that partway through, the other players stopped throwing the ball to the participant. They were being socially excluded in a small, almost trivial way. But the brain scans showed something remarkable. The same regions that activate during physical pain, the anterior cingulate cortex among them, lit up during this social rejection. Your brain, at a fundamental level, does not clearly separate getting hurt from getting left out. This is why a text left unread can produce a genuine physical discomfort in your chest. This is why you check to see if someone liked your post, replied to your comment, saw your story. You are not vain. You are running ancient software that was built to ask one question above all others. Am I still safe within the group? Every phone check is on some level, both questions at once. What's new? And am I still accepted? Two alarm systems built over hundreds of thousands of years, both aimed now at a glowing screen that can answer either one in less than a second. And here is the twist almost nobody talks about. These systems were never meant to be triggered constantly. In the ancestral environment, a rustle in the grass was rare, a moment of social uncertainty, rare. The body's alarm systems were built for occasional use, brief spikes of attention followed by long stretches of calm. Your phone fires both alarms dozens, sometimes hundreds of times a day. The system isn't broken, it's simply never designed to run this often. A researcher named Gloria Mark, who has spent over a decade studying attention in digital environments, found that the average person now shifts their attention roughly every 40 seconds when working on a screen, and that after each interruption, full focus takes on average over 20 minutes to recover. Not because people lack discipline, because the alarm keeps firing and the brain keeps answering it the way it has answered alarms for 200,000 years. So the next time you reach for your phone without meaning to, understand what's actually happening underneath. You're not weak, you're not addicted in some simple, shameful sense. You're a primate whose vigilance system evolved on an open plane and whose social bonding system evolved in groups of maybe 50 people, both now wired directly into a device built by people who studied exactly how those systems work and built a product to trigger them as often as possible. The leopard never came back, but your brain is still listening for it in every buzz, every red dot, every silent glowing checking of the grass.